Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Friday SLO talk. I'm very happy to see you all this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. As you are coming in, please make sure that you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're connecting from, your institution, the weather in your neck of the woods. Thank you. My name is Jarek. I'm a faculty coordinator at Santa Ana College School of Continuing Education, and I'm the founder of the Friday SLO Talks. For today's conversation, I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Enrique Jauregui. Oh, yes, Elisa Rabinovich is here. All right. Good morning, Lisa. Thank you very much for joining us. So these are my coaches. You guys would like to say hello. Enrique and Lisa, would you please introduce yourself? Yes, we can see you, Enrique. We just can't hear you. You okay? Oh,
I'm guessing you have something like there you go. Can't.
Yeah, I was unable to unmute myself. Right. Sorry. Thank you, Jarek. Appreciate it. My name is Enrique Jauregui. I am the SLO coordinator for Fresno City College. That's in the Central California. So welcome all. Thank you for attending.
Good morning. Happy Friday. My name is Lisa Rabinovich. I'm an adjunct instructor, so I work on a few different campuses in San Diego, and I work as a faculty outcomes coordinator at San Diego Mesa College.
Thank you so much. So Enrique and Lisa are going to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them there. We also have a Padlet site going in the background. So Enrique is going to share it in the chat momentarily. For today's conversation, we have wonderful, really long-awaited speaker, Dr. Maria Andersen. She's going to talk about curriculum design in AI world. Just a few words of her introduction. Dr. Andersen has spent most of her career teaching, writing curriculum, and developing digital products for learning. Dr. Andersen has degrees in chemistry, environmental biology, mathematics, business administration, and education leadership. After 10 years as a college professor, Dr. Andersen stepped out of academia to embrace online learning and the underlying technologies behind it. She has built iPad games to teach algebra, launched the Canvas Network Massive Open Online Course Platform, designed adaptive learning platforms for STEM used by McGraw-Hill, worked as the director of learning design for Western Governors University, a fully competency-based education institution, and built a software company, CourseTune, for curriculum design. Recently, Dr. Andersen returned to the classroom, having new adventures in K-12, middle, and high school. She's focusing much of her time on developing educational curriculum for a world with ubiquitous information access to AI resources. Truly impressive resume. The topic of Dr. Andersen's presentation, Curriculum Design in AI World, is quite timely, and judging by the number of emails and number of people who have registered for this workshop, a relevant topic it is. Just one more reminder, please post your questions and comments in the chat. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and thank you again for joining us. Welcome, Dr. Andersen. Thank you again for agreeing to share your expertise with us.
Thank you, Jannik. I am delighted to be here today with all of my colleagues from across California and Mississippi and Vermont and Tennessee and a few other places I saw in there. I want to just talk for about 15 minutes about the arc of education and technology that we're currently on. And I know it's tempting when you're sitting at a computer to be multitasking, but we're all educators and we know that doesn't work. So I hope you're giving me your attention. And if what you need to do that is to go fold some laundry or clean your kitchen counter or something like that, by all means do that, because I find that I concentrate more when I am doing something that's manual labor and listening than when I'm distracted by all the things on my computer and listening. And I think this part is really important. I've been teaching a class called Technology and Society to middle schoolers for this last year. And what we do is we look at a variety of technologies and infrastructures and how they came to be in the world. from what we did before they existed to how they developed and were invented and iterated on to modern day, and then looking at what they will become in the future. One of the things I did prior to a talk on this in January was do the same thing for information and education. And I want to just walk you through that arc, because to understand what we're going to have to do next in education, you kind of have to understand how we got to where we are today and start asking why. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why do we do this? And follow it all the way back to its roots to understand if we need to keep doing it. Is it pedagogically sound, or is it something we do based on the time period we went through? So let me just start you here. About 200 years ago was when we first got Webster's Dictionary of the Human Language. Prior to that, there was no way to look up a word that you didn't know. You had to go find somebody who knew that word. And so if you think about the kinds of things we did in schools 200 years ago, it was primarily teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, as we like to say in the United States, the 3 R's, but mostly reading and writing, and mostly based on either the New England Primer, the American Spelling Book, or the Webster's Dictionary, all very new developments at the time, things that did not exist prior to that. And so our one-room schoolhouses, our foundations of education are built upon nobody having access to that. The average household did not have a dictionary, a spelling book, or a primer. The school had those things, and maybe not very many copies of them. In 1833, so 190 years ago, Carnegie built the first public library in the United States. And that's an amazing system we have. It got fleshed out to thousands and thousands of public libraries. And again, that's where people would go to get their information. Still, households had very few of their own books. And if you needed to do research, you would go to the library to do that. And you only really had available what the library had. There were book exchanges, but we're talking like the 1800s here. It wasn't like a book would make it across the country in a day, right? Like your library was your information source. In 1858, we got the first American encyclopedia. So now we get a little bit broader information that could live at home, but these are very expensive technologies, we'll call them, because they were kind of a technology, a way of storing all the information known to man in 8 volumes, right? And then you had to keep buying updates to that, right? As we got in the 1900s to the American Encyclopedia Britannica, they became a little bit more affordable, a little bit more likely to exist in a house, but still something that mostly just the rich had. So if you are a child in American schools in the 1900s, you are still getting your information from the books you get at school or your public library for the most part. And that continues to like the 1950s, 1960s. You might start to see more people having a garage sale version of the Encyclopedia Britannica in their house. So there's at least some older information at their house, but it's not like you could go look stuff up on the internet. We had research papers because you had to do what in order to know about a topic? You had to do research. It wasn't like you could just Google it, right? And then early 1990s was the first time we actually see a change to this model, a significant change to this model, and that's when Netscape was invented. The internet existed prior to Netscape, but Netscape was the first tool that actually allowed us to search all the websites that were out there. Prior to that, some of you will remember, you actually had to know the website address you were going to and type it in, and that worked. But if you didn't know that the library had a website, you would not find the library website, right? If you did not know that Encyclopedia Britannica had a web presence, you would not find that they did. So 1990, which is only about 30 years ago, is the first time you can actually start to search for the wide variety of information we have today in your own home. And certainly that's followed by Yahoo, Google search engines that help us to surface information. Those search engines then get co-opted by advertising and marketing buys. And so search engines over the last 20 years have become more and more biased towards what marketers want us to see, not what is the best information, not what is the most useful information, but what is the information that somebody will pay the search company to show you. That is primarily what you see on page 1 of an internet search. And this is that case where we have become the boiled frog here, the classic boiled frog example. We became enamored with search, and then we used it for so long, we didn't realize that search went from something that was showing us the most well-linked and useful pages to the thing that was showing us the pages people paid the most to show us. But that is what internet search has become. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, that what you're getting from all those search results is already very biased. It's capitalism biased. It's what people have paid for biased. Okay, so but going back to the curriculum, one more item in this sequence, this arc of information we're kind of going through would be in 2007. And 2007 was the introduction of the iPhone and the Android phones, and that certainly changed our lives forever, right? And that too was only about 20-ish years ago, right? 15 to 20 years ago. Time is going by so fast now. And what that did was change it from I can access the information at my house with a computer attached to the internet to I can access the information pretty much anywhere I am, from my watch, from my phone. Like I don't have to rely on a teacher, a textbook, or a library to do the research. The research is here. The education system, however, was not built for this world. Our education system was built for the New England Primer, the Webster's Dictionary, libraries. And we've made very few changes to accommodate the fact that information is no longer scarce. Information is now ubiquitous. And where we used to have to do research, this process called research, in order to learn about a topic, we can now go to tools like ChatGPT or Elicit, which I think Janio posted in the chat, and ask for research about a topic, and we get it. And we can fully address the fact that some of the research is not correct at this point in time. Just for the record, all those books that held research were not also always correct either. They had inherent biases, they left out information. When you were going to write an encyclopedia article, you couldn't include all the history, so you edited what you showed to people, and those all had biases as well, and inaccuracies. And so what we're experiencing today, surely we have inaccuracies in some of these search engines, and ChatGPT will, in fact, make things up when it doesn't have an answer, although I hear 4 is better than 3 was. I haven't had a chance to test it myself. But students made things up. Doctoral students made things up. Authors made things up. This is not something new to the human experience, and we shouldn't discount the technology simply because a technology trained on human behaviors and knowledge also makes things up. My concern is that if we are still functioning on an educational system built around reading, writing, arithmetic, and the lack what we're teaching students is now completely wrong, completely wrong. The world they live in is not that world. And I think we have to do two things. We have to first stop and think about how you would build education if you were starting today. Like if you took today's students and moved them to Mars, for example, where there was none of this back history of the way education worked in the 1800s, how would you teach them for the world they live on, for that new expansion of the human race? And then two, we can't just overnight move an education system. So there's like the ideal, like where would we like to be? And then there's the second and much harder question of how do we take what we have and all the people who were educated in silos to teach subjects that lacked information depth or information access, let's say, how do you take the current staff of employees for all of education and shift them as rapidly as possible into something different than what they were trained and to do and have experience in? That is not an easy task. Now, we do have new technologies to possibly assist that. So that's one good thing. If we're moving towards a more, say, Socratic method of teaching, a more problem-based method of teaching, a more interdisciplinary method of teaching, the teachers also have the same tools to help with that, right? So it's not like we're throwing them into new things without any assistance. Every teacher now has like the best assistant ever, which is these ChatGPT type systems where you can now get help with all the things that used to take you a ton of time and were nothing but a brain drain. And so, for example, when I'm teaching my classes, I use ChatGPT to help me write skits for the students to learn about topics by acting them out. I use ChatGPT to help me write a variety of scenarios for them to analyze in class, where before it would have taken me hours to think through and research and find, like, you know, I need 5 companies that do a multi-branding strategy, right? Well, I can get that really quickly, and then I can refine them for class really quickly, right? I can use ChatGPT to re-level reading text to students who are at a lower reading level or a higher reading level. I can use it to write quick quiz, like Kahoot questions, get the CSV file for them, and then upload them right to Kahoot. So that we can do more engaged classroom activities. I do wish Kahoot would actually give me a setting that let it be right answers get the points, not fastest answers get the points. But, you know, pedagogically soundness is not always the primary mode of these companies. There are a variety of things that I can use ChatGPT for now that I would have to do by hand all the time before. And so my choices were eat up all of my free time doing these things and still don't get to everything I want to do in class, or work the 40 hours and don't do engaging things in class. Those are kind of the choices. If you've ever taught in K-12, and most of you are college teachers, but some of you may have done it, you know that the number of things that teachers are asked to do in K-12 is actually impossible. There is no way you can do everything you are asked to do on a daily basis. For example, you're supposed to provide a lesson plan, a very fleshed out lesson plan for every single 45-minute class period you teach, with differentiated instruction for every student that has an IEP on that lesson plan. Now you teach 7 periods a day, so 7 45-minute periods. Writing a lesson plan like this will take you 3 to 4 hours if you're actually going to do all that differentiation. And just based on that alone, you can tell right away, this is actually impossible. On top of this, you have other duties at the school to carry out. You have parents to contact, you have IEP meetings to sit in on, and like, this job has been actually impossible for decades. And everybody who works in the system knows it. And yet everybody just keeps adding in more to teachers. So finally, this is like the first tool I've seen that finally takes like the prep time for courses, the ability to create curriculum, things like that down in time, right? There's finally the ability that teachers, if they want to do something engaging in the classroom, have an assistant to help them to do that, right? Now, on the con side of that, for instructors whose job it is to teach writing, that has gotten a lot harder. Now, there are ways to teach writing using ChatGPT, but all of them involve more work for the instructor. It's things like, oh, we'll have the student first write the essay with ChatGPT and then have them research the inaccuracies in that. Well, the only way for a teacher to grade that would be if the teacher goes through every essay and researches the inaccuracies too, which is not going to happen, right? It's like one of those impossible things you've just handed to teachers to do. But I think the better question might be, why do we teach writing? And we have to go back on this with every topic in education, I think, and ask ourselves, why do we teach this particular thing? Because prior to 200 years ago, the only reason people wrote was mostly to communicate with other people who were far away, and that's it. And here we are, you and I, communicating with each other from far away, and there is no writing involved here. But that's why people wrote. Secondarily, to write down the information as we were discovering it through the scientific revolution and all of the science developments of the 1950s and the 1960s. But again, for many people today, if they want to learn something, they do not go read a paper about it. They go find a great video on YouTube and they watch it. And that's because humans were actually built to share stories and talk to each other and remember images and things that happened to them with emotional attachments. For millions of years, human development did not include text. Text was a technology, right? So we've been teaching this very specific technology called text in schools for about 200 years in the United States. But it's not as relevant as it used to be. And so what is it about communication? We do still need to teach communication, but my question, and the thing I think we have to think about, is how much of writing and reading of that is necessary. I'm not saying that none of it is. I'm just asking what of it is. Will some students love reading and want to read their whole lives? Yes. That's the case right now. Maybe like 10% of students fall in love with reading and want to read their whole lives. And we still haven't cracked the nut on why some people like it and why the majority of people don't as a pastime, right? But I think we have to walk away from that idea that it's a necessary requirement of being a successful adult. And I think we have to go through that with every subject now, not just writing. And this is probably a little easier for me because I have taught math most of my career. And we actually hit something of a crisis back around the time the smartphones came out, when Wolfram Alpha hit the internet. And Wolfram Alpha was this technology where you could put in like anything in math, any equation, a lot of word problems, and it would just do it. And it would show the steps for doing it. And you suddenly were confronted with this existential crisis as a math teacher, like, well, why are we teaching things that computers can do this easily? What should we be doing instead? What really matters in these courses? So there's some question about like, what should we teach instead? I just want to throw out a couple ideas, and then maybe we can just have some questions and chat discussion about this. But I think there are skills we need to be teaching that we aren't teaching. For example, forming and keeping close human relationships. might be something we should be teaching. How to form alliances, negotiate, compromise, and strategize about solving major problems. That might be something we should be teaching. I was reflecting as I taught technology and society, I was teaching the students about refrigeration technology and what happened in the 1970s when we discovered that CFCs were causing a hole in the ozone layer, and the Montreal Protocol, which was enacted to stop the production of CFCs worldwide, and worked. It stopped the production of CFCs worldwide. And the hole in the ozone layer stopped growing. And I think as of this year, it has started finally to shrink, because it took 20 years for that to happen. And my students were so shocked. It was the first time they had ever been told that any environmental effort in the world had worked. And I thought, if what we're teaching them in social studies and history and all of this in government is all of the things that failed, all of the times we were in conflict, and we never teach them about the times, we do teach them, I'm sure, about the Allies and NATO and things like that, but maybe that should be more of the focus, like the focus on how do humans come together to solve difficult problems, because the kids we teach in college and the kids below them in middle school and high school, I'm afraid they got some big problems to solve. So maybe that should be a focus of our educational system. I also think that, and I could just be biased here because I teach a class in technology and society, and it's a very unique class. But I really feel like our students, especially our younger ones, they're born into a world that to them feels like the natural world, but is actually a very fragile and complex world of technology, and nobody teaches them how any of it works. And so teaching them about water infrastructure and power infrastructure and agricultural infrastructure and transportation infrastructure, and how all of the appliances in their house were actually developed and why you have them, and what society was like before that you had them, and that these are all valuable things for them to be learning, because they feel about it like we might have felt about growing food and hunting 200 years ago. To them, it is the natural world. Plugging a device into a wall and getting your device charged, that is the natural world to them, but they don't understand it. And they may live in a world where things fail because of environmental crises, because of weather crises, because of all sorts of reasons, energy crises, and they may need to know how to navigate that world. Anyways, I think there's a lot of places we could be focusing on in education that these are going to be some hard conversations over the next couple of years, right? It's not something we're going to solve overnight, but I think we have to have that vision for, if we were starting from scratch, what would it be? And then secondarily, the second problem of how do you get there from where we are now? And that's a much more difficult problem to solve. So I want to open the floor up for some questions, and I'm happy to provide thoughts on other things, but I just wanted to start with that kind of big picture.
Thank you, Dr. Andersen. There's a lot of traffic in the chat, just agreeing with you. But one of the questions that was brought up is how do you move from content center to concept understanding? Well,
I think one of the things that has to shift to do it is actually the assessments. And I'll use a very simple example because it's much easier to do this with simple examples, and I will acknowledge that up front. Take, for example, an anatomy and physiology class. Even if you've never taken one, I'm sure you have some idea of what is taught in anatomy and physiology. You learn about the bones, the muscles, the function of those things in the body, some of the major systems of the body, and what some of the things that cause them failure. But it's a lot of vocabulary. It's one of the most vocabulary intensive classes taught at a college. And it's a very difficult one for those going into the medical professions. Often it's taken multiple times. And so when we began teaching this class online, it was actually, and it still is, quite difficult, because if you give students quizzes online, they just look up all the answers because they have tools. I mean, you can lock down their browser, but guess what? They have other tools at their disposal to do it with, right? I mean, their watches, for heaven's sake.
Right.
And so it becomes kind of an exercise of just looking up answers and putting them in if you're taking it online. And so I have to go back and ask the teachers who teach it, well, like, why do you want them to know all this vocabulary and this? And it comes down to, well, if you're going to be in a room with a patient, you have to be able to converse, with a patient and, have a level of expertise about it. Say, okay, well, there you go. There's your assessment. It's a conversation, not a multiple choice test, not a fill in the blank test. It's a, can you have a conversation with a patient using these words? That's the right assessment. That's the thing to aim for, right? Now, that's a harder assessment to do. But again, as these tools spin up that we have right now, it's getting a lot easier to analyze a conversation using these tools, to get the actual text from a conversation and throw it through something to analyze it, right? Like, I mean, there are new ways we could do some of these things. But the truth is that if the assessments are not authentic to the task the students will eventually have to do, then they will continue to be gamed. And I don't know what much of the point is. I mean, to some extent, if you really wanted the students to know the vocabulary and you wanted to know that they weren't, looking up the answers, you only really have two choices. One, make the assessment something where you and the students sit together on a Zoom or in a room together, and you actually see if they know the words, or put them in a high stakes testing environment with no access to anything and see if they know the words. But I think the authentic assessment is actually the better thing to do, because you're pointing them in the direction of the thing they actually have to do with as part of the job, right? And that feels a lot more like something you want to work towards. You don't want to be the doctor who can't talk about the bones and muscles in the body, or the veterinarian who can't talk about the bone that was just broken on your canine patient, right? But that's what we have to do for everything now, right? For every assessment where a teacher now says, or an instructor now says, but my students can just use ChatGPT to cheat on this. You have to go back to that why question. Let's pause and say, why is it we are assessing this very particular thing? What is it we need that individual to be able to do long-term? And what are the variety of ways, assuming you had infinite time and capabilities, what ideally would you do? Because my guess is in the next 2 years, anything ideal you can think about, we can probably develop the technology for in the next 2 years. And this is going to be like, we're all reacting in the moment to like this like slightly panicky feeling about how things are shifting so fast. But the reality is that no decisions on institutional learning objectives, I'm watching the chat a little bit, are going to be made tomorrow, right? They're going to take a couple of years to get all the debating out of everybody's system and to see what happens here. And I know that for as fast as it feels like it's moving to us in education, because all of our students have discovered these tools at this point, right? Like, a student has to kind of be living under a rock to not know these tools exist at this point. And, and some of them don't have the access, but we are already dealing with it, right? But in Fortune 500 companies, a lot of them are actually cutting off access to these tools right now. Not permanently, but right now. And that's because of the security risks associated with the tools, right? So right now, when you put information into ChatGPT or something like that, ChatGPT is adding it in some cases to its language models, right? And so you're giving your company's information to somebody else. So companies, especially large ones, have to be very careful that this information is not leaking into these systems, especially if it's proprietary information. And they also have no idea what the implications are of letting one of these systems loose in their intranets and in their data sets. And so as rapidly as these Fortune 500 companies are locking off access to these tools, the AI companies are working specifically to implement security standards and security protocols for these so that it can function within an intranet of a company. So I just heard this morning that Bill Gates is back at Microsoft, specifically working on security products around AI and how they will integrate these AI products into their legacy products and their legacy systems so that companies will adopt the tools. This is all just to say, I think we have a couple of years here before the larger companies start to adapt. Now, when that happens, the job market's going to get really weird. And one of the things I think is going to be super tough is that entry-level positions will be the first to disappear. And those are, of course, the ones we are training students for. As fast as we can train them for the positions will be disappearing. And I'm not quite sure what we make of that. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer than yikes. But I am worried. I have talked to some folks at very large employers about how they have to structure their thinking around employees now. And one of the thoughts is that we may have to have more like an apprenticeship model for positions that are high up, because you can't, if you have somebody who has currently 30 years of expertise all the way down the line of a job, right now you could replace them with somebody with 25 years of expertise, and 5 years later replace them with somebody with 25 years of expertise. But that's going to go away pretty quickly if you get rid of all your entry-level positions, right? And so as the positions kind of like roll up to the highest, and only the highest is left in a lot of verticals, especially, I mean, one of the ones that we're seeing the most impact right now is marketing, because there's so many people working in marketing doing copywriting and social media writing and things like that. And that can all be done by ChatGPT, like pretty much instantly. It's all filler copy, right? It was a hard job to do as a human being, because you were just like churning out, I don't want to say junk content, but you were just like, find 30 ways to market the exact same thing using different words, right? I mean, it was a hard job to do as a human, right?
Wow.
And so those kinds of jobs are going away, but that means that when you have somebody who's running the social media campaign and using ChatGPT to generate all that stuff, right now that person has gut instinct about what works and what doesn't, and what was a good prompt and what wasn't, because they at some point wrote them themselves and saw how they performed.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Andersen. Another question.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a call for complete integration of curriculum? And if so, how do we start?
I thought actually the smartphone was a call for complete integration of curriculum. I kind of hope that ChatGPT and these other tools force it finally.
Right.
A course where you can talk about a variety of things in the same place is a much more interesting course for students. When we talk in my technology and society course, which is a middle school course, but I mentioned that, when we talk about well, I'll just go back to refrigeration technology, for example. We have to go back to, well, what kinds of things happened to people before there was refrigeration technology? Well, and there's all sorts of microbiology and medical problems that happened to people before we could refrigerate food, right? And then there was a period of time where we went and grabbed ice from the mountains and brought it into town. And you may not know this, but we shipped ice all over the world from New England for a couple of decades, all over the world, because we had really good ice. And so how does ice not melt on ships? Well, there we have some physics and thermodynamics. And then we go on to the actual compression and expansion that's used in the refrigerator technology. So we have some science in there. We specifically talk about the changes in society when You go from having to basically go get your food every day to make sure it's fresh to being able to store it for a week and how that changed people's lives. So we're starting to talk about some of the social impacts. We go to the environmental impacts of CFC. Like there's just so many interesting things we can talk about along the way. The students can do some writing, they can do some learning in a variety of ways, they can do some problem solving, that's a much more interesting class than the individual classes on thermodynamics and gas laws and but you can teach all that stuff in context, right? So I think that one of the tricky things now is that we have to develop integrated curriculums and know exactly what threads, what learning objectives we're hitting in those integrated curriculums, right? You have to be able to say, like, of the science standards we're trying to teach here, we are checking off this set of 20 objectives in this class. And we're missing these. So we need to find some other class that those can go into. That's the combination still hits everything. Or maybe we just have to get a little bit better about saying, you know what? If students are going to walk out of a classroom forgetting 60% of what they learn every day anyways, maybe we don't have to hit 100% of these things all the time. Maybe they will learn them along the way if they really need them.
We have some additional questions. By the way, I'm Amanda Tainter. Nice to meet you. I don't think we got to meet. I'm one of the facilitators here. Some additional questions that are coming in. What about math teachers, for example? Students struggle with specific skills and they expect teachers' help in the current environment using ChatGPT. If the current environment using ChatGPT amounts to cheating and it breeds uncertainty in teachers' mind, if their students are actually learning, what do we do?
Well, math students have been cheating using a variety of techniques for a very long time, and there's very little you can do about it. So I don't think that's the issue, but I think the issue is more that I actually think a lot of the math that we teach is ridiculous, and we should have stopped teaching it 50 years ago. We spend an inordinate amount of time, for example, teaching a variety of ways to factor polynomials. The reason that we did all of that in the 1950s was because it was actually very difficult to teach all sorts of advanced math without factoring techniques because we lacked computers, which we have now. And the only thing that really matters is understanding the concept of the zeros that come from a polynomial and where those fall on a graph. And for 99.99999% of real world polynomials, they aren't factorable anyways, but yet we continue to ad nauseum teach it in K-12 and in higher ed. We have classes that still are taught without calculators all over the place, which then require us all to learn how to factor to do that. And it's ridiculous. We should be teaching the concepts and making sure that with technology, with spreadsheets, with easy to use, graphical technology, not graphing calculators, by the way, but things like Desmos or something like it, that they understand the concepts, and we are focusing on the concepts over and over and over. I would always rather a student pulled out technology and did their math with technology than did it by hand. I've taught math almost my entire life, and I can't accurately promise you that I can do a complicated math problem by hand. Why would I?
So Maria, as I'm listening to you, just this concept of flipped classroom comes to mind, right? That okay, fine. So let's just say best case scenario. We have certain content, certain skills, certain competencies. Students, this is what you need to know. So here's A, B, C, D objectives for the course. Go ahead, study them. Again, I'm available as an instructor. I can answer all the questions that you have. Here's your ChatGPT, here's the Khan Academy, here's the YouTube, here's all the resources that you need. And you're absolutely right. Those are just ubiquitous, right? I mean, students can learn pretty much anytime, anywhere, literally, with great degree of efficiency. So
let me actually stop and disagree with you there.
Of course.
I actually don't think that the majority of students can do that.
That
I
was
think-
actually my
I
question.
think
Go ahead.
3% of autodidact, 3% of people who are autodidacts can do that. They are sufficiently self-motivated and have this desire for learning that is insatiable. 97% of people don't have it. Learning is actually really difficult. It takes a lot of brain power to learn new things. It's exhausting to learn new things. And most people, given the choice between doing a fun game on their iPad that'll give them dopamine hits or struggling with new concepts to learn them, will choose the dopamine hits from their iPad. So I actually don't think that's the answer. I think teachers, human beings working with students, especially in person, may be more important than ever. There are, of course, ways we can give them access to materials through e-learning and online learning and flipped classroom learning, but without in-person consequences and in-person goals and in-person, I call it social consequences. Without social consequences, it's not so easy to actually sit down and do those things on your own. So one of the things I think that's important is this concept of the ESOL lens that I came out with about 6 years ago, and I put a link to it in the chat, which is that you should look at your learning objectives as like the fastest pass you can make at this right now to shift your curriculum is to look at your learning objectives right now and ask yourself what level of ESOL each learning objective is on. So, and it's mostly to do with assessment, like how will you assess this? So the lowest level is existence. You know what? I'm required to teach it, so I'm going to make sure they know it exists. Done. I've taught it. The second level is, can the learner do it with support? So that's the S. So like with support, if they were to go 2 years from now to YouTube and watch a tutorial on this, would they remember how to do it again? Like they've done it enough that they could do it again in the future with support if they had to. Factoring, for example, falls in that category for me. Independent learning is the I. Should a student be able to do it independently without assistance to get them to the next class? Like it's important enough that the next class rests on it, that they need to be able to do it independently to be successful in the thing that follows me. So we're starting to get to a higher level of assessment, multiple mediums of assessment, higher stakes assessment, multiple measures, right? And then the last one is lifetime. Like this is something the learner needs to be able to do independently without outside help for lifetime success, right? And so if you go through each of your learning objectives, you will find that especially, you know, when you're teaching, I taught at a community college. And so everything we taught was subject to transfer, right? So it wasn't like you could just dump things out of your curriculum, because if you dumped them out of your curriculum, the course would no longer transfer to the four-year schools, and the four-year schools wouldn't change anything. So if the four-year schools still required students to factor, then we had to still teach students to factor, whether we liked it or not. But I could teach it with a supported level of assessment. I was still teaching it, we were still assessing it, but it was no longer high stakes. Right. And that enabled a lot more students to be successful because they didn't have to know procedural things from the 1800s that were just ridiculous in today's world that they would never use. And it didn't hurt the ones who were going on to become engineers because they were learning it and they knew that with support they could go back and do it later. And if they had to, if they ended up with an engineering calculus teacher who refused to let them use calculators, they knew how to go find the material and they knew they'd been taught it at some point. Right. So I think the fastest thing we can do immediately is just to put our learning objectives through that ESOL lens and asks our, you know, say like, okay, I'm still going to teach it, but how deeply am I going to teach it? Which of these are the most important things? And that allows you to shift some of your instruction and assessment time to the ones that are really important, the ones you want I or L level on.
Jarek asks in the chat, how do we teach self-efficacy? And I'm going to take that question a little bit further. How do we support the skill not really skill, how do we support self-efficacy in forming in our students? And then I want to tag it also with a couple of questions in the Padlet. How does AI then work into the workflow of doing all of that? So that was like a 5-point question for you.
Okay, let's see. I think that we're going to have to teach self-efficacy by giving students more realistic problems to solve. So when I taught, I'm teaching marketing right now to high school students, and we had to learn about market research. So that's, doing surveys, conducting focus groups, doing some academic research, finding competitor analysis, things like that. And so I chose a problem that was meaningful to the students, which was maybe they could get, could they get laptops instead of iPads for their classes? Because they don't like their iPads very much. And so because it was something that was meaningful to them, they were interested in how to conduct the best surveys and conduct the focus groups and how to make a good presentation of all of that stuff to the administration, which was our final project, was presented to the administration, right? It was a meaningful problem to them. And I think more and more, we're going to have to give students enough agency to choose meaningful problems to them. So to go back to our example of anatomy and physiology, if you get to those I and L level, the independent learner, the lifetime learner level learning objectives that you have, is there some way that you can give the students a project that's meaningful to them? Like maybe they have an older parent who's suffering from osteoporosis, or a young child that has some nutritional issues, or help them to find a problem in their life that is meaningful, and then wrap as many learning objectives around it as you can. Maybe they propose which ones wrap around it, that they will learn deeply. Like maybe the syllabus says, as part of this project, you must cover 10 of these I or L level objectives. So pick something that's narrow enough you can do it, broad enough that you can hit 10 in it, and you tell me which 10 you're hitting, right? And that would be something that, as a student, well, it now has meaning in my life, which also means I'll probably remember what I learned too, right? I have an emotional attachment. It is meaningful to me. It is not just I roll, here's 20 multiple choice questions about that I can Google the answers to, right? I want to learn them because I know the situation personally.
So how can AI help us in supporting this project-based approach or this authentic assessment that you're advocating for? How does AI work into that workflow?
I think first what's helpful is that when the teacher has to go grade that project, they can quickly get a summary of the relevant research, right? And hopefully they will already have a gut check about, what kinds of things they want, right? But I think part of those projects has to be that the students have to actually personalize it to their situation, right? Like, here's the research, and now based on that research, here's the kinds of things we're going to try, do, change, right? They have to look at what they have found and think of a variety of experiments they could run in their own life, or, how could I see which of these things works well for me? They could make an experimental design. They could, there's all sorts of things to do. But I think one of the things that is really apparent here is that research can't be the point anymore of a project like this. And so I think for a lot of these projects, the final result is a presentation now. It's a presentation to your class. It was self-recorded one, one that you record of yourself if it's an online class, or one that you give to your class if it's an in-person class, something that shows that you have internalized what you learned and that you're able to present it, that there are practice rounds, that is supportive of the student. So one of the things I discovered was that my students had all been taught that a presentation was writing down everything you're going to say on the slides and then standing at the slides and reading it. That's what they had been taught by their English teachers, was a presentation. Probably because they turned it in and they didn't actually give the presentation. But aside from that. So I just let them give the presentations that way the first time. And then I said, okay, everybody open up your presentations, copy all the text from every slide down to the notes. So there is nothing in your presentation anymore. And now go find images that remind you what to say and put images on every slide.
Mm.
And now tomorrow you're going to do it again, only looking at the images. Right? So that's the kind of support that builds that self-efficacy, that belief in the capacity to do it yourself, right? Give them something interesting, support them along the way, let them make some of those mistakes and level them up as you go to a better and better outcome. One of the other things I've had to do is shift to a competency model for projects. ChatGPT came out right as we were doing our last project last semester. So I learned my lesson because I let them use it. I actually told them to use it. And I got some things that I wasn't particularly happy with. So I shifted to a model now where when they turn in a project, they get a 0, an 80, or 100. And if it's less than an 80, as long as they turned it in on time, they have a 3-day period to go. I'll just tell them what they need to fix. I'm not going to nickel and dime them on a rubric all the way through anymore. Because with ChatGPT, there's no point. It can do so much of the rubric for them, right? So I just tell them what they need to correct, like what isn't good enough. I give them a 0 and tell them to turn it in again within 3 days. Mm. And if they want to go for 100, they can either get it on one of their revisions, or if they want to if they like get an 80 on the first try, they would be stuck there because I'm not regrading it unless they turn it in early. If they turn it in early and get an 80, then they can go through a revision cycle to get 100. And what I am teaching them there is that in the job world, if you get something done early, your team and your boss can give you feedback on it before you hit your deadline. And you can get it that much better. But if you just hit the deadline, there is no ability to change it after that. Mm. Unless it's really bad, in which case you will be sent back to redo it, right? And that's not a great thing. But I'm just not going to nickel and dime these points anymore, because I can't know the difference between a 72 and a 70 anymore, right? With these kinds of tools out there, that's just not fair. Some kids have access to them and some don't. So I'm just going to teach them how to improve and how to do better.
Thank you, Dr. Andersen. Elisa, you have your hand raised, and also from that we go from after that, Lori.
I think Alpha had her hand raised too. Oh, okay.
Elisa.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. I just wanted to address some of the concerns and questions from the group about, when it does come to teaching writing, and, that are we going to potentially lose jobs like for writing instructors, and potentially also lose tutors. What kinds of things, if you can speak to, like, what kinds of things have you seen like English teachers doing, and and like those transfer level writing courses. And then there was a comment from Lori that she played around with the EI and all the research was false. So if you could speak to some of those points. I'm also a writing teacher as well. So
okay, so let me tell you that when Wolfram Alpha came out, all the math teachers did this. All the math teachers who were paying attention, especially at community colleges, we all did this together. We had this couple of years of panicky feelings and worry. And so I've been there. I understand how you guys are feeling. But if you think that all English teachers are teaching is writing, you're wrong. You're teaching critical analysis. You're teaching a lot about how society works and the right types of things that students read and how they analyze that and how they put it together, right? I think it's possible we will do less writing, like less researchy writing. It's actually, I've been wondering about this since I did my dissertation, to be honest. When I did my dissertation, you have to do this chapter 2 of a dissertation, which is a review of all of the literature on the topic you are writing. And you must do it in a way that does not plagiarize anybody else, even though hundreds of other people have also done a literature review on all of the things in the same topic area. And I kept thinking to myself, why the heck can't I just go find a meta-analysis of 50 years of research that's been well done and say, I'm pointing to that and then adding 8 years of new stuff to it? Like, why do I have to go back and research 100 years of stuff when it's been done and done and done and done and done? Like, why not just point to a body that everybody would read, that we all agree is reasonably accurate, and then add the newest stuff to it? And then kind of like the encyclopedia model, right? And then 10 years later, somebody writes, here's the next 10 years of literature review of this topic. Do we all agree that this is the literature that's important from those 10 years? Yes. Okay, let's use that as a base. Add anything nuanced that's important to your work, right? Like, so that I was wondering about, in 2009 when I was writing my dissertation. And I think this is really having that, we are now having that existential crisis, right? Yes, some of the AI is wrong. Not all of it, a little bit of it. And guess what? Some of the research papers that I cited in my dissertation were probably also wrong. We've seen numerous cases now of research that we thought was tried and true, that upon replication is not tried and true. The marshmallow study, for example, is a famous one. People are still citing it everywhere. And it's actually been disproven now in follow-up studies that tried to replicate it. It had more to do with the types of the types of subjects they had brought in than the actual psychology. So you cannot just say, well, the AI is sometimes wrong, therefore it's no good. Because if that's the case, none of the research we have is any good, because it's also sometimes wrong. We are human beings. We make mistakes. Science is a process of trying to get better and better about our understanding of the world through empirical means and experimentation and re-experimentation. And I think we're starting to get better about making sure we do that re-experimentation now, especially in fields like psychology and social sciences, right? And we should do it in science too, for honestly. So I think that as writing teachers, you need to start thinking about all of the things you teach students besides just the writing. And you need to start to codify those things in your learning objectives and your course objectives, because as the need for the actual writing shifts, you still need to be able to convince people of an argument. You still need to understand how different people in society would take a different opinion about something, about how different groups of people write and talk about different subjects, right? Those are all nuances that are taught in English classes. Think about all the books you read as part of ELA which is English Language Arts, over the years, right? And the life lessons you learned from all of those different books and perspectives. That's still English class, right? It's just not maybe called writing class anymore. As for English tutors, it may be that English tutoring goes away. I mean, copywriting is probably going away as a career, right? Careers have come and gone throughout the decades, and there's not much you can do about it once the technology is there. I mean, we used to have millions, well, probably not millions, but at least hundreds of thousands of telephone operators in the United States. And guess what? We don't have them anymore either, right? But smart people can move into new fields, right? And I think the teaching part of it, it's a good thing. Humans just aren't very good at learning on their own. Most of us, I'd say 97% can't do it on their own. They need a coach. They need a guide. They need social accountability to get it done. And in K-12, they need babysitting too, right? So these jobs are not going away. They're just going to shift a little bit. And like when we have shifted our math classes to be the kinds of math classes I did want to teach. So I recently have been an adjunct for Westminster College, which is a liberal arts 4-year college. So I wasn't trapped anymore in the community college. I must teach this because it has to transfer. So at Westminster, we were able to just design the courses how we wanted them to be. And we did lower the proceduralness of the courses a lot to focus on concepts, to look at real world data whenever we could, which is really easy to find now, by the way, and to teach the students how to analyze real world data and make models and analyze those models and think about when they would change. And like, where you're able to, you can do that. And when where you're a little bit trapped, you still have wiggle room if you start to use that ESA lens and you start to think about the other things you teach besides writing. Does that help?
Thank you, Dr. Andersen. Lori, would you like to speak to your questions in the chat?
Oh, I think can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I think she answered most of it. I just was curious more about, how writing courses will transform. I'm not quite sure. Well, as far as the research with AI, yeah, I totally get your point. But I'm not quite sure why tutoring would necessarily go away. But yeah, I'm just more concerned about where writing courses, transfer letter writing courses are going.
So I was thinking more about writing tutors, I guess, when I answered that. And writing tutors, it's now pretty easy to put your essay or whatever you're writing into ChatGPT and get feedback on what to change. So, if that's what a writing tutor is doing, I can't see how that wouldn't get very quickly replaced by the technology, which might honestly. I mean, I have some friends who used to work in writing tutoring centers, and it was also kind of grueling work to do, right? But even with like math and physics and other subjects, if you've done some more advanced experimentation with ChatGPT, you can turn it into a tutor that asks you questions, that gets the results, that takes you down lines of learning. If you've never read The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson, now would probably be a good time to read that book. It's kind of a prescient book written, I don't know, probably 2 decades ago, I'm just guessing, about like what an intelligent AI-based tutoring system might look like, starting with small children and working their way up. And it probably would give you a better idea of what it might look like as we start to develop these systems more. So maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you. Doris,
yes, I just wanted to say something very little, is that I really like the way you're saying about the writing part, because I'm not saying that writing is not at all important, but like you say, there is other ways to actually encourage and help to students with critical thinking. And I come from another country with our, I would say, literature classes. It was not just through writing, it was through oral speech. So we did the same process of critical thinking and, knowing how to express ourselves, how to put ideas, but through oral expression. And not also that for example, we analyzed some writings and we did it through theater as well. So we put the writing on actions and actually people's lives and actually how it would look in the real world, and with behaviors and reactions to behaviors and all that kind of stuff. And when I moved to the US and I realized how focus was on learning on writing, it was a little hard for me, for example, to be able to communicate that kind of thinking and ideas in just one way. So that's what I do agree that it's not like, eradicating, is just to see that there's so many other ways to put it for students to be able to succeed, to get them to that critical thinking, because that is an important part of the whole thing about learning, is that they have that process and they are motivated to do it. So just wanted to say that.
Great comments. And I think that what's probably going to happen is it just shifts from being called writing or English to communication.
Yeah.
And it's a variety of ways to communicate and a variety of ways to use tools that help you. I mean, I don't know about you guys, like I find a lot of professors don't know this exists. I'm just going to tell you, there's a little tool you can add to your Chrome browser called voice to text. And I use it all the time when I am responding to student work in Canvas, when I am responding to emails, when I need to get information that's on a page that doesn't allow copying, like a textbook, like a digital textbook that doesn't allow copying, but I need that information somewhere else. I speak the information from one place to another. I speak the comments to the students. I speak the emails I need to write, right? Like I don't write them, I talk them. Now, it's still important that I know how to communicate well talking, but I think that's Doris's point too, right? That the important thing is that you have the ability to communicate well.
Right.
Not that you can write it, that you can communicate it. And I think that's just going to be the shift. You're just going to slowly move into that shift. And for some things, I think other mediums are actually fantastic. I mean, I learn more these days from podcasts than reading books, and I love to read, but I love learning from podcasts. I love it. I can go walk my dogs. I can do the dishes, and if I really want to engage with the material in the podcast, I may stop and write a blog post after it or something like that, or I'll go grab the transcript and reflect on the parts of that transcript that were important to me. Again, that's teaching that self-efficacy, right?
That's
okay,
right.
You don't want to write a lot, that's fine, but we better make sure you can engage in behaviors that help you to remember what you learn. Writing is one of those. What are some other ways we can do it, right?
Brian, did you have a question? You have your hand raised.
Sure, thank you, and good morning. Thank you for putting this on. Yeah, my question is really, I know we've been spending most of our time talking about ChatGPT, and that of course is the title, but I'm curious for Dr. Andersen and for any of the other participants today, are there any other AIs that you've been working with? I've been kind of like using GPT, but I've been using other ones as well, and just trying to figure out how to make it work into my workflow. Like you were saying earlier, sometimes it can really take off some of the time-intensive things that we're doing. So I'll give you a couple examples. I got some feedback recently that my YouTube videos that were posted to my Canvas site were missing captions. And so I used a AI called Whisper to literally within an afternoon caption over 80 YouTube videos, which was a huge time saver for me. So that's been really interesting. There's also some AIs like Midjourney and Leonardo that can generate images. So I've been trying to use those to incorporate them into lecture slides. The last one I think that I've been using, let's see, besides those, it'll come to me as soon as I, finish asking the question. But there've been a few others, right, that I've been messing around with, and they're all quite interesting, and they all have different applicability. The one thing that I'm really kind of like having a question about too is like, what is ethical, right? Because all of us have been trained in academic honesty, and so if I'm generating like a multiple choice question using ChatGPT, is that ethical? First of all, because I'm not the one generating the question, really. And then if I do that, do I have an expectation that my students shouldn't use it? So there's all of these like really interesting kind of ethical questions that come up too. So really the question is, are there any other AIs that you've been using? And then that other piece is just something that has been like rattling around in my brain. So again, thank you for the workshop today.
Yeah. So I think the one most of us have been using is ChatGPT simply because of the ease of use and the availability, right? There are people who are using some of the newer tools in beta. You have to have a beta invite to use those. I just started using GPT-4 this week, and I haven't used it a ton because it's super sluggish right now. And so I still need to get work done. So I'm using 3.5, which is much faster. I think that the GPT that's coming out in Microsoft's Bing is supposed to be multimedia, which is going to be interesting because it should be able to do things like generate images using some of these other tools like DALL-E 2, and it may even be able to do spreadsheets and things like that, right? As of right now, GPT-4 can't do those things, at least that I've not in my version that I have yet, but I went in looking forward to that and then discovered it's not there in the chat GPT-4. It's in the regular GPT-4. So I think the ethics is a really interesting one. And I guess I'll ask you this question. If you went to the test bank for your text and grabbed a multiple choice question from that and put it in your test, would you have felt ethically obligated to tell the students that? I mean, I think for the most part, the part that's important is the question sound. So I think the ethical responsibility of the teacher is to make sure that the question is sound if it's something that involves actual stakes to it. Like, I have to say I don't pay a lot of attention to the results when I'm like creating a Kahoot for class or something, because it's low stakes. We can talk about it right there. It's not worth any points, things like that. But if I'm writing, like this morning, I was writing a test for my marketing students. And if I use ChatGPT to generate any kind of distractors or stems, I would go in and make my own modifications on them if I didn't think they were different enough, right? But it still saved me time to not have to write them all from scratch, right? And I think the way to think of this is, if education was well funded, if education was well funded, every one of us would have a teaching assistant to help us with these things, and we don't. And so what we now have is an AI teaching assistant to help us with these things. And that AI teaching assistant we should use ethically and appropriately to assist us with doing the work. It shouldn't replace our work. But again, we already have been grappling with these questions, and I'll take it back to math for an example. When we started teaching math online, and we had tools like My Math Lab and WebAssign and some of the others, I would hear of instructors who turned on My Math Lab and sat back, and that was their course for the entire semester. Was that ethical? I didn't think so. I believed that there should be more engagement with students than assigning an AI-based, I mean, they've been claiming it's been AI-based for a long time. I doubt it, but now it might be, or in the next year it might be. But assigning an intelligent tutoring system to students and calling that good and collecting your paycheck, I mean, I think there's more than teaching than that. And I think that it's in our, I mean, I think that we should treat it as an assistant to us and let it help us do the things that it helps us do faster, like your captioning. Or, I mean, when I was teaching math online 15 years ago, and math teachers were told they had to caption all their videos, none of the captioning worked well in math. None of it. It was full of cuss words. Try processing f of x through a very low budget text translator, and it doesn't turn out well, right? Or sin x over and over again, sin x, secant x, like it was just cuss words all over the place. And so multiple math teachers I know just pulled down every video they had rather than go through the process of captioning them because it was just too much work, right? So I think we have to treat these as assistants. And if you see somebody doing something that you think is unethical, you should probably have a conversation with them, but just ask yourself, are they using it like an assistant? Or are they doing no work now? Because if you can use AI to get to the point where you don't have to do any work, then find better work to do with students. Find more meaningful things to do. If you have no prep and no grading anymore, well, now you can do some real world projects because you have the time for it. That's what you're being paid to do, is engage with students.
Yeah. Maria, if I may, the question that I have is, you may remember a few months ago, I think, maybe a year now, there was this artist, right, were screaming that, hey, look what AI is doing. It won a major art contest, right, somewhere. It painted a picture that got an award. And it seems like when AI is used to something creative that otherwise would belong or historically has belonged to human beings, right? All of a sudden, AI creates it. We seem to have a problem with it. When it comes to scientists, for example, I imagine, biologists, astronomers, physicists use AI for their daily discovery research-oriented tasks. And I'm not sure if they are the ones who are asking the question, is it ethical for me to use this tool if I'm moving the science forward? But when it comes to human creativity, we seem to be kind of like, pushing back at it. What's your take on it on hey, just like you said, it's a tool, it's an assistant that we should be learning how to take advantage of rather than deny that it exists.
Art is a really tough one. And actually, we've just been studying a lot of this in my class because we went all the way back to the development of photography. And a lot of these same arguments happened as photography was invented. The painters, you can imagine, were all like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We paint the essence of people. And now you just want to, like this, capture them on a tin type using chemistry. Like, you're ruining our craft, right? And that's not to belittle this in any way, but that was the conversation, right? And then we went to film photography, and all the people who could do the chemical development went out of business when the film started, right? And then we went to digital photography, and guess what happened to all the film developers, right? And so that's a field that has changed over time. I think what we're going to see is a shift to a value for the work, for art that is specifically made by a person and is validated. So for example, if you've been watching Reels or TikToks, whatever, you see all these artists in process making the art, right? I think in the future, when you buy a new piece of art, it's going to come with a video of the making of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be part of the experience, is to be able to see how it was made, right? And that's going to be the humanness of it, and the story of it, and the experience of it, which you're not going to get if you are getting a piece out of Midjourney or DALL-E 2 or something like that. But I have to say that as educators, this is actually a really nice development, because it was getting harder. I mean, we have like Creative Commons and things like that, but when you're looking for something very specific to add some flavor or context to something, it was not always easy to find an image that worked. And so we tend to see the same images used over and over and over in e-learning, because they're the ones that are available for free on Creative Commons, or, and lots of those platforms have actually gone away now that housed those images, right? So I think to some extent, this is giving us the ability to be more creative in the kinds of images we use. I think it's a shame that that a lot of artists' work was used in training these systems without their permission. I don't think that was ethical at all. And maybe the AI companies need to pay restitution to the artists who were impacted by this, right? As a possibility, but I don't think that. But again, this is a really tough one, right? Like, it's probably going to have to be decided by the courts, because it's not like digital camera makers had to pay restitution to film photographers when digital cameras came out, and everybody could more easily take pictures and modify them, right? So it is to some extent a march of technology, but I do think we will find new ways to create value around human created work. And it'll just be a little different, as it has always been, as the work of artists have changed over the years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Photoshop has been around. You're right. If this has been done without artist permission, that's one thing, absolutely. But then there's the body of art, as we know, that's in public domain. That's medieval art, impressionists and whatnot. It's just an interesting take that again, artists seem to be pushing back at the concept of having art done by somebody else than them. Versus again.
At the same time, we seem to be having a renaissance of people who want to learn how to make art themselves.
That's right.
Every art class in Salt Lake is booked within a day or two of being listed. You can't find a beginning drawing class if you want to go to one, or a watercolor class, or an oil class, if you don't sign up the day it opens, right? Like, so at the same time that we have these threats to art, I think that many of us are starting to appreciate walking away from our computers and doing something real. And so artists may find themselves doing more teaching of people as they create their art. You know, I mean, we do live in a capitalist society. You do have to, all of us have to shift as technology shifts society, right? So nobody's really, nothing is foolproof.
Right. I think the same thing is with research, right? You mentioned it already, that instead of taking weeks and months to get to the gist of it, here we go. So now we have little kids making pictures like Van Gogh, and okay, how can you come up with this picture without understanding what impressionist is, and things of that nature. I think those are the questions that we'll have to ask, which goes back to the question that you asked.
Well, I think that a lot of these things we can solve in the classroom with games, puzzles. I'll call them puzzles or games. I've always thought, I mean, when I taught math, I've always thought that the thing that makes math interesting is figuring out the puzzles yourself, not being told the answers, but figuring out the puzzles yourself. Like, why do these things work the way they work? And so, for example, if you were trying to teach what Impressionism was, for example, or the Impressionist artists did, having printed copies of 5 Impressionists and 5 something else, some other, I'm not an art historian here, so I'm struggling, but 2 different types of art, and having them first take those 10 images and sort them into 2 categories that make sense to them, or multiple categories that make sense to them. Like, how would you sort these? What characteristics do they have in common? Give me anything you got, right? And to do that physically and think about similarities and differences, and to talk about the similarities and differences. And when I've done that with math, for example, I found that students see characteristics I would never have thought of that make some things similar. They find the ones I was hoping they find, sure, but they also find others. And that is the humanness of us, right? That we are such good pattern finders. We've taken so much of that out of education and given them so little pattern finding. I think we're going to just have to go back and hit that stuff much harder, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, you can make a portrait of your dog as an Impressionist would. But the question is, what did the Impressionists do that were different? How did that advance? If you look at painting as a technology track of its own, there is a whole technology track there of how painting was developed over time, and why it is that the Renaissance painters had such a realistic feel to their artwork when it hadn't been there before. And that's because they used camera obscuras. They essentially used pinhole cameras and mirrors to project images of the real world somewhere where they could sketch it, right? It was like the first time somebody had done that, right? So there, again, you could like use these arcs of subjects to teach all sorts of stuff. We just don't do that right now, but I think we should.
Dr. Andersen, thank you for that wonderful answers. Previously, you mentioned the Carnegie system, the old things, and I believe that when time changes, people need to change with time. And it's Jarek brought it up. On the chat is, how do we teach what we teach? I mean, what's the reason for it? And then with that, why are we afraid of the unknown?
So I mean, we're afraid of the change and the unknown because it's personally threatening. That's it, right? So it's a scary, personally threatening change. But I think you just have to keep coming back to this touchstone. Learning is actually hard. 97% of people cannot actually do it on their own. All of you are people who have expertise in helping other people learn in a variety of ways. We are going to have to hone some tools in our toolboxes better than we have before. Some tools may move to the back of the toolbox, not get used as much. We may talk to each other and find new tools to use as we move into this new world. But our expertise is helping people learn, and that isn't an easy thing for most people. people just aren't. I have a talk I gave a long time ago. It was a TEDx talk on free range learning and why it is so difficult to be a free range learner. And that might be worth watching because it may help you feel a little bit more confident that the skills you have are real, even if the subject you teach shifts around a little bit. The skills you have are real. You can stand up in front of a group of people or develop a good online learning experience. And the students aren't going away. Just what they need to learn may be moving around. And to some extent, that's a little exciting. I mean, if you've been teaching for a long time, you probably are a little sick of teaching what you're teaching. Would it really be the worst thing in the world if it shifted a little bit here or there and you got to teach something in a new way? Or, I mean, most educators kind of like to try new things. Not everybody, but probably everybody on this webinar, because you're here at this webinar, right? So most of you guys are probably like, you probably look forward to a semester when you thought of a new way to do something. So there'll be a lot of that, right? Like, but I don't think that we have to look at it. But if it does, if the threat to your profession and your existence, that's why it feels scary, right? But I don't think it's actually the threat in that case. It's actually one of the reasons why I went back to teaching. When I sold my company, I just wanted to fill my soul back up. And I think teaching is really good for that. It's very rewarding. And you always have classes that make you laugh and students that, accomplish great things. And that makes you feel really good, right? But also it just felt like a pretty safe place to be while the world turns on its axes crazily with this AI stuff that, people will always need to learn things and somebody will always need to help them with that in whatever capacity that is.
You made a number of comments about the human relationship, right? That it's important. And again, with this craze about technology, we don't forget that we are all human beings. Our students are human. We are human. We come with the baggage, expectation, thinking, ideas, our own perspectives. Equity discussions come to mind, and access is only one part of it. How do you think could AI tools help us narrow the equity gaps in education? Again, you could probably speak with K-12 perspective.
Yeah, so this is actually a really nice one. I think there may have even been, I think I even saw a couple headlines go by about this. AI is discovering parts of history that have gone underutilized in education. So like I was working with some teachers the other day about what ChatGPT could do for them, and they were math teachers. And so I said, like, you're supposed to include more diversity in your math curriculum, and that can be hard. And you're teaching them like rational exponents. Like, okay, what is the diversity I can teach around that, right? Okay, well, let's ask ChatGPT for any history. We'll start with any history related to the development of rational exponents. And then once we got that, I said, can you identify any women that were involved in this history? And sure, it could find some tangential associations, like where women may have been involved, or like someone who developed some extra theories, and like, oh, could you find, more diverse perspectives of these kinds? And, we would go and we'd check them and they were real, but that wasn't the kind of thing that was easy to do before, right? Like that would have involved, even with Google, I don't know that you would have found it. These are like really obscure things, right? Like you probably would have had to go read 8 to 10 books and then pulled them out one by one and assigned them to a topic you might teach eventually, right? And it was so easy using ChatGPT. And again, you should check it because ChatGPT will make things up if it can't find answers, right? So that's important to know. It will do it. 4 is supposed to be better about not doing that. But still, it was a great starting point. I mean, once you have the names and what they did, it's not that hard to go verify them, right? But getting that in the first place, even with Google searches, would have taken days. of sorting through, you know, page 100 of Google and page 200 of Google, trying to find this stuff. And it just didn't. So I think the ability to just include more diverse perspective in classes is much easier now.
Oh, Hamid, I think you have a question.
Yes, I do. And it's related to what Maria just talked about, the ability to verify the outputs of these AI systems. My question is, what do you think the effects of the new AI technology will be on publishers and the human curated content in general? Because my biggest worry is that the internet will be drowned in content generated by these AI systems. And if the focus is not on enabling people to create new content, we are just going to be fed what these systems are generating. And this is really the biggest thing that keeps me up at night.
So I think the biggest worry there is especially around misinformation, right? That the ability to create misinformation content is now much easier. But I don't know that I know enough about that one to talk about what I have. Some ideas about how I think we're going to get to verified content. Somebody put in the chat, oh, AI verifier, this is now a job, right? So those tutors who might not be helping with writing anymore, they could be content verifiers for journalism or for news shows. Or I do think that we are going to have new technology to do things like verify videos, because it's going to be pretty easy with some of this new AI to fake videos. But I think that's actually not that hard to do. During the Black Lives Matter protests, people created apps very quickly to allow somebody to start filming what was happening and have it upload in real time, so that if their phone got taken away, all the video was safe, right? That it was safely recorded somewhere else. And I think we're going to see very quickly somebody develop an app to have a lot of people who are at a public event all recording that event, be recording within that app, so that the video not only goes to their phone, but gets stored as part of this historic event that's happening. And that triangulated video together can verify that, yes, this is what this person said. Yes, this is what actually happened. We have it with 1,523 sources that this has actually occurred at this time and this date and in this place, because we have that information from all the phones, right? So I do think we will get very quickly to this. I would be surprised if somebody doesn't already have this one developed or in development, right? Because it's just the next natural step to combat the misinformation. And my guess is we'll see the same thing coming for things that have common misinformation out there, so that you can go to some source you trust, and that source will have used dozens, hundreds of independent verifiers to come at it with various sources of information that verify what you're seeing is true, right? And maybe that's a good thing, because we haven't had that, right? So maybe the forcing of, is this truth or not? Is this fact or not? Maybe the forcing is actually what we need. If we had had that the last 10 years, maybe we would have been better off, right? That we would all know, oh, you better go make sure it's verified first before you share it, right? If that had been, rather than, oh, I saw it on the news, therefore it must be true. Or I saw it on a channel that purports to be the news, therefore I know it to be true. We'll just say that. That hasn't been helpful, but maybe having a variety of people all come at it from different sources, and you can look through the resource list and say, oh yeah, these all look like verified sources to me, and the work is good.
Dr. Andersen, there's faculty that I think it was last week that put it in the chat, if I recall. She teaches English, and she's having the students write their assignments in class, in person, because she's really scared about ChatGPT. What would you say about that?
Well, this is going to get more interesting for all of you who teach college, because I would say about half of the middle schoolers I have right now can barely handwrite anything. So if this is your strategy, it may be going to get worse and worse and worse over time. These are kids who spent a significant portion of their learning experience at home, learning on a computer, not writing anything by hand. They have lost a couple years of handwriting in the process. And it's not likely that they're going to gain them back because they use computers for most of what they do. So whenever I assign things to be done by hand in the classroom, I've always spend at least half my time struggling to see what it is they've written. So first, don't recommend it as a long-term strategy. I think we're going to have very quickly tools that you can have the students type in class that will be able to detect whether they have things being copied and pasted from other things, and we'll have a complete record of how the essay was constructed.
That's right.
I'm, again, certain they are already in development, if not already out there. It's just a matter of whether they're widespread. Think about the writing history, for example, in Google Docs, right? Everything, if you just started to record everything that the undo feature was tracking as you went, you would see every edit. You could basically watch a time lapse of the development of an essay from start to finish and see huge bodies of text being pasted in and things like that, right? Or you would see if the student's like, oh, I'm going to beat this by typing it all myself. You just see one long stream of typing with no corrections, right? Also unlikely. And all of these things could be detected by AI, right? All of these types of gaming behavior could be detected by AI. So I think if what they're really worried about, if what we really need to assess, and again, I'm putting this into question, if what we really need to assess is a student's ability to write from scratch some kind of academic essay, constructing it all on their own, then I'm sure tools will come along to help make sure that that is exactly what has happened. And the essay will have to be fully constructed inside of one of these tools. I'm sure we'll have that. But again, I would call the question, is that actually something we want to continue to make students do, or is it the communication that's important? Because as a business person in the last 10 years, I never wrote an essay like I wrote in school. Never once.
Wow. That's impressive. So what do you say about turn it in?
My guess is they're already incorporating stuff like this and to turn it in. I don't pay attention to it much because I try to give assessments. Like I honestly, from my business students, they always have an assessment involving a presentation. Right? Like show up and show me that you know it. Or they have these 0, 80, 100 assessments that they construct a project. I give them feedback. They have to keep iterating till it meets the standards we set forth together. Right. But the technology to detect it will come along, a month or two after the technology to do it. Again, the question is, should we still just think back to where we started this conversation, the dictionary, the library, the encyclopedia. Not until 1990 could we search for information on the internet, 2007 on our phones. The world of the last 30 years is completely different than the prior 400 years, which is completely different to the prior million years.
Wow.
We are forcing, what's interesting to me is that in K-12, we know we have to pay a lot of attention to students being below reading level and things like that. And 20% of K-12 students have some kind of problem with reading.
Right.
They're not at reading level. They have, dyslexia or some other special need that makes it difficult for them. ADHD is hard on reading, it's a lot of different things. And so we're forcing 20% of the population to be good at something that has only been around for most adults for 200 years.
Right.
Reading and writing existed before then, but not for the average person. So we're forcing 20% of the population to be good at something that has only been around for 200 years. That is not enough time for humans to adapt to a new tech, to be inherently good at a technology. What we are good at is communication. We cannot expect everybody to be good at this very particular technology. That's like saying, well, the piano's been around for 200 years. You should all be good at playing the piano. Why? Because we decided so. I mean, if 200 years ago, one-room schoolhouses had all had pianos, you guys would probably all be proficient or have had a really bad experience in school trying to become proficient at playing the piano. It's just a technology.
Yeah.
It was very useful technology that helped us all advance. Yes, but it is just a technology.
Yes, stepping stone perhaps at that. You're absolutely right. When I think about it, we've given in the last, again, historically, at least, obviously the years that I spent at school, reading has always been top of the list of everything, right? I mean, you don't read, your life as a scholar is just not there. What are you going to do without reading? And
I just want to point out, Muhammad put in the chat, writing is credited with spreading knowledge far and wide, and it is.
Right.
If YouTube had been developed before text, could the same thing have happened?
That, yeah. That's true.
I mean, if aliens had come down and handed us a video technology instead of a writing technology, and it had been able to, it was easy enough to spread across the world, could we have had the same knowledge spread with YouTube? And I think the answer is yes. This was the technology that was easy to use and available, but our technologies are shifting to other things too. I don't want us to get rid of reading, but we have to start to consider the possibility that with a neurodivergent group of humans that all live on this planet, that we cannot focus 100% of our education on this one particular technology where everybody fails or succeeds based on their ability to read and write as the sole deciding factor.
Right. Julie, you made a lengthy comment in the chat. Would you like to speak to this? And Alpa, you have a question? Oh, okay. Let me see here. Yes, Julie Larson.
I'm laughing right now. Am I on?
Yep.
Yes, please go ahead.
I knew I would cause some controversy with this particular comment. And I want you to know, Dr. Andersen, and by the way, I'm not turning on my video because I'm still in my pajamas.
No problem.
But I really, really appreciate this seminar. You've really shared some fantastic ideas and things that really do need, I believe really do need to be considered and put forth in education. But I did post this, and I went to your link to your blog, and I read through, and I actually took a screenshot of what you posted on ESIL, and I'm going to try to also implement that. But then I noticed that you wrote this sentence and probably just didn't proofread it correctly.
I'm sure.
Or intensely. And it says, do you see it?
Yeah, I do.
And then I realized this is exactly the same thing that happens when students in many programs, period. So of course that should be with.
Yeah.
But as it is, the sentence is not understandable. And then, so I just thought that was really funny. And I decided I would post it after Muhammad posted what he shared, because I do agree with him. And then I just talked a little bit about my experience, and Doris is very typical what she said about the problems that she had, where you just have so much to say as an immigrant coming into the United States, but you can't get it out because your language is just so poor. And so in my lower level ESL classes, I just have them just write as much as they can and not worry at all about grammar and punctuation. But I always do these lessons. And then sometimes if there's something that all of them are doing poorly or not paying attention to, then I'll take one of my better students who I know can handle it. And then I go and show, well, now in academic writing, we need to indent our paragraphs or, something like that. And I only, even in the university that I teach at, I end up in the senior capstone course, I don't even individually check the punctuation and grammar, but I note these categories. And I tell them that if you're going to go forward in your profession, in your career, in graduate school, you need to learn how to correct these sentencing and grammatical errors. And then I show them, the OWL Purdue and where they can just go online and use resources to be able to correct these. And I encourage them to always get an editor. So at any rate, I just put in that comment, and I really appreciate the course, but I do not think that we will ever take out writing from as a primary, important pillar in the university system. They have these pillars for accreditation. One of them is writing, and I teach in both writing and communication. My PhD is in rhetoric, and I've been teaching in the field of communication and in the field of ESL for 40 years. So I really think it's important to maintain it. That was just my point. I agree with Mohammed.
Those are great comments, Julie. And I'll just add that having gotten A's in English all the way through college, all the way through my two master's degrees, 3 bachelor's degrees, a PhD, a dissertation, writing columns for several organizations, writing thousands of pages of content, I could still publish something with a mistake in it.
Right.
But if an AI had been in the background checking that work, I might not have.
Well, wouldn't spell check have corrected it?
The blog platform I'm using doesn't have spell check in it. I think I can install a Grammarly. I think I can install a Grammarly thing, but again, like at the level, like I just want to caution you as to say that what we teach will catch everything in the future.
Oh no,
I've been writing for my entire life, and I've been doing math for my entire life. I cannot catch all of my mistakes.
Yeah, I'm not saying
And anybody who's ever published a textbook also knows you can publish a textbook with multiple editors reviewing your work. And the second it walks out the door, the next day you open the book and turn to a page, you will find a mistake in it, and it will make you crazy because you didn't catch it and none of the editors caught it either, right? It's just like that when you get to a certain volume of work, you won't catch it, right? So I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah. Again, these are tools. Comes down to this again, human aspect of it, right? We are using them as human beings. We do make mistakes. We do make judgments, assumptions based on our own experience, and I think that's the reason why.
I actually want to come back to something Julie said though, which is that she doesn't think that writing will go away as a pillar of the university,
right.
And that very well may be true. But society may go away from universities as where they send their kids to get educated. So we can hold to our values just fine. We just may become less and less relevant over time. That's the danger. And that's our choice, right? And that's our choice.
That's the fear. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Andersen. This has been really insightful. I do appreciate, and I'm sure everyone else does, the depths of the discussion. And again, I'm just very happy that you were able to spend with us so much time to share your expertise. This has been very revealing in many aspects. So thank you so much. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.